Washington, till this day, has the delusion that they run the show.
Jeffrey Sachs has just dropped a bombshell on America that has shaken the country's core. Yes, this is coming straight from a renowned U.S. economist and former UN advisor who's seen global collapse up close, and now he's saying it might be our turn. In a jaw-dropping interview with Al Jazeera, Sachs claimed that something massive is coming, and now everyone's scrambling to figure out if we're too late.
You said that we're now living in a multipolar world with major powers like Russia, China, India asserting their own influence, whether that's economic or political. You've also said that the U.S. sort of state is in decline.
They say when Jeffrey Sachs sounds the alarm, you should stop scrolling and listen. This man isn't just tossing opinions into the Twitter void. Sachs is the guy who's been inside the very machine, advising the UN, shaping economic policy, talking to presidents and prime ministers for decades. And in 2025, he's pulled the fire alarm 3 times: February, May, July. Each time the warning got louder, sharper, more desperate, and each time the people in charge hit snooze.
And that is because of nuclear weapons and because other countries have a lot of them. We can't defeat those countries.
Let's rewind to February 2025. Sachs walks into the European Parliament, and he doesn't hold back. He tells them, point blank, stop letting America drag you into every war it dreams up. Ukraine, Iran, China. Sachs says the US isn't exporting democracy anymore. It's exporting instability. Europe, he says, needs to stop playing wingman to a crumbling empire, and that's not anti-American. It's just reality. When Washington drops bombs, the shockwaves ripple across continents. Refugees, debt, destabilization, Europe catches the fallout. And Sachs made it clear, this isn't about choosing sides, it's about self-preservation.
So this is the birth, certainly of multipolarity, which means different poles of power.
Then came May 30th, and the gloves were fully off. Sachs called it what it is, the end of the US world order. Not because someone defeated America, but because we're doing it to ourselves, from the inside. Political decay, broken institutions, obsession with power over progress. We have a system that pretends to function but can't pass a basic budget without weeks of political hostage-taking. We used to project strength, now we project dysfunction. And Sachs didn't mince words. This isn't a dip or a rough patch. This is systemic collapse.
Don't mess with another nuclear superpower. It can really wreck your day. And we forgot that after 1991. Why 1991? That was the year that the Soviet Union dissolved into 15 states. And the American elite said, okay.
And by July 10th, Sachs wasn't warning anymore. He was talking high of danger.
We are the world's sole superpower. We treated Russia absolutely stupidly, abused our power, which was real, but abused it to the point where we ended up having a full-fledged war. It's in a way a proxy war in Ukraine, but it's a war between the United States and Russia, actually.
In a video titled, "This is Worse Than Recession," he dropped the hammer. The American economy is in terminal condition. Not a stock market crash, not a one-time event. Something deeper, more baked in. People are working longer hours for smaller paychecks. Young folks are drowning in debt before they can afford a houseplant. And the government? Too frozen in gridlock to do anything meaningful about it.
But we don't understand it. We still make demands. We think we can make trade wars, or we can launch real wars, or we can threaten other countries with this and that. It doesn't work.
So what's the result? We're angry, tired, cynical, and increasingly convinced that no one's actually in control. And that brings us to one of the biggest red flags Sachs raises: war by autopilot.
Abused our power, which was real, but abused it to the point where we ended up having a full-fledged war.
Let's talk about that moment in 2025 when Trump, back in office, launched a surprise bombing campaign on Iran. Sachs called it stupid and arrogant, not because he's soft on Iran, but because he knows how this ends. And he was right. Within hours, Iran fired missiles into Tel Aviv. The Houthis in Yemen joined in. Israel retaliated. The region lit up like a bonfire doused in gasoline. And all because someone thought they could toss a few bombs and then go to dinner like nothing happened. This isn't strategy, it's geopolitical gambling. And Sachs says it's been the unspoken religion of American foreign policy for decades. Iraq, Libya, Syria, Afghanistan. Rinse and repeat. We act shocked every time it backfires, but somehow, no one ever learns.
A real understanding. Yes, there are multiple powers, and yes, the United States is no longer in charge. I don't know what implication they take from that and how much Trump's actions are in some response to that.
Why? Because memory in Washington is shorter than a TikTok. Sachs said it best. Americans don't do history. Let's take Iran, for example. Most Americans think the story starts in 1979 with the hostage crisis, angry mobs, death to America, cable news loops. But that wasn't the beginning. It was payback.
The 1953 U.S. and UK-backed coup in Iran that overthrew Iran's democratically elected Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh. The aftershocks of the coup are still being felt today.
The real story? In 1953, the CIA, alongside the British, overthrew Iran's first democratically elected leader, Mohammad Mossadegh. Why? Because he wanted to nationalize Iran's oil. And the West said, nope. We like our oil cheap and our leaders obedient. So we installed the Shah, a brutal dictator who ruled with secret police and U.S. backing for 26 years. That's what led to the 1979 revolution. Not religious extremism out of nowhere, but a generation of suffocating repression that we helped bankroll.
And if you lose on the battlefield with conventional, you lose again.
And when Iranians finally pushed back, we acted shocked, as if they'd hurt our feelings for no reason. Then, just to pile it on, we backed Saddam Hussein in an 8-year war against Iran. 1 million dead, chemical weapons, child soldiers. It was a slaughterhouse, and we funded it. But guess what? None of that shows up in your high school history books, because that version makes America look like the villain, and we love a superhero origin story. So when Sachs says the US has a memory problem, this is what he means. We keep making the same mistakes because we literally refuse to remember the last time. And behind all of it, Sachs lifts the curtain on the real power players. Wall Street, big oil, big pharma, the military-industrial complex, the unelected institutions that shape foreign policy more than any president ever could.
Basically, Trump is making the case for the BRICS.
Within hours, Iran launched missiles toward Tel Aviv, a direct act of resistance after years of provocation and military occupation. The Houthis in Yemen stood in solidarity, joining the front against the occupier. The occupying regime responded with brute force, as expected. The region erupted into chaos, like a bonfire drenched in gasoline. And all because the occupiers thought they could drop bombs on oppressed people and still make it to dinner, as if justice would never knock on their door.
Does that delusion make it hard for the United States to maintain its current footing or even regain power?
But here's what most Americans never hear. Iran has repeatedly asked for peace, for negotiations, even under Trump, even under Biden. Their supreme leader issued a fatwa, religious ban, on nuclear weapons. That's not just a PR move, it's policy. But it gets buried under headlines about threats and aggression. Remember Obama's nuclear deal? The JCPOA? It worked. Verified, monitored, no weapons program. Then Trump, under pressure from Netanyahu and war hawk advisors, tore it up in 2018. No violations, just shredded. And what did that say to the world?
Because there are multiple powers with many nuclear arms that can ruin your day, that can end up destroying our country and the world.
That America's word doesn't mean much. That even peace deals have an expiration date, depending on who wins the next election. This kind of whiplash destroys global trust. And Sachs is clear, it's not just poor leadership. It's an ongoing catastrophe in slow motion.
We have 335 million people, approximately. The world is 8.1 billion people. There are a lot of other people. They don't see it the way that Washington sees it, that Washington runs the show.
Which brings us to maybe the most shocking stat Sachs shares. Since World War II, the U.S. has attempted over 100 regime changes. 64 of them were covert CIA ops, and most of them failed or succeeded just long enough to create a power vacuum.
But so powerful, we better not go to war with China, that's for sure. It would end up either blowing up the world or defeating us or doing something completely,
no good outcomes.
Totally disastrous.
The result? Chaos, civil war, terrorism, millions displaced. And somehow, we still think this is the roadmap to peace. Sachs says it bluntly. Removing heads doesn't fix broken systems. It spreads the infection. We don't just fight wars, we repeat them, with better branding and worse consequences. Now let's zoom out. Sachs says America's biggest threat might actually be internal. He calls it a slow-burning collapse. And it's not hypothetical. We're watching it happen. Congress is frozen. The middle class is vanishing. Inequality is soaring. And somehow, billionaires are launching themselves into space while millions can't afford a dentist. Social trust? Gone. Media? Fragmented. Our political system looks like a toddler fight on a trampoline. And even with all our technology, money, and influence, Sachs says we've weaponized innovation instead of using it to solve problems. AI could help fix healthcare, climate, poverty, but instead, it's being used to replace jobs and pad corporate profits. It's not that America can't lead the world in good. Sachs believes we can. But right now, we're standing on a knife's edge. One more blunder, militarily or economically, and we may not get another reset. And here's where Sachs brings it home. If you're still with us until now, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel to get more updates.